All right. So I think we're ready to get started. Thank you guys all for joining. I think this is a fantastic turnout. I'm really excited to see everyone here. So we'll start with a brief introduction. I'll go really quickly because I know you guys are not here to see me, you're here to see them. But I'm Ben, I'm GB's fiance, and I work as their partner manager. So for the introduction, just a couple of questions for you guys. One, what's your channel name? Why did you start an ASMR channel? Describe a little bit about your specific content and how you guys are kind of unique in the ASMR world. And then just a couple of things that you guys are interested in outside of ASMR. So, do you mind? Go ahead.
Hey guys, it's me, ASMR darling. I started my ASMR channel because, well, I started watching ASMR because I was sad and couldn't fall asleep one night, and I came across these videos, and I've never even heard of ASMR, and so I watched the videos, and I was just, I started getting tingles, and I looked up the word, and it was just a light bulb went off in my head, and I've always had that feeling since I was younger, and it was just amazing to find a community of people that have the same experience as I do, because only certain people get the ASMR feeling, and so and I thought, why not share and give to the community back, because they've helped me so much. So that's why I started my channel. And I just do basic ASMR sounds, tapping, scratching, whispering. And yeah, outside of ASMR, I'm a student. I like to go scootering. I just started going scootering. So that's what I kind of do for fun. Matty's turn.
I am MattyTingles.
Why did you start an ASMR channel?
I started an ASMR channel. I started watching ASMR about 7 years ago. I found it randomly in a weird black hole of YouTube that you can get into. And I was like, oh, I have felt this my whole life. It's an actual thing, and people are doing it intentionally. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I watched it for like 4 years or so, just as a fan. And then one night I was sitting there watching it, and I was like, I have a mic and a computer. I was like, I'm just gonna try it. And it's just been like that since.
Awesome. And then just describe some of the things that you do on your channel and how are you unique?
Oh yeah. So I do a lot of shoot videos, which a lot of people know me for. I do role plays. It's a variety channel.
Oh sure. And then what about outside of ASMR?
I go to a lot of movies and just hang out and come to things like this.
You're a Marvel guy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All day.
Boo.
What?
Alright, Erin, go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm Erin. My YouTube channel is Goodnight. I mainly focus on roleplay videos. I actually had a makeup channel prior to ASMR about 2 years ago. And I would always get comments from people saying, you have such a relaxing voice, you should totally get into ASMR. And I kind of saw like a niche that I thought was sort of missing in the ASMR community at that point, where all the role plays I was seeing were really realistic, like going to the doctor or going to the therapist or the dentist, things like that. And that can be really triggering and relaxing for a lot of people, but I really like feeling like I'm being transported to a different time and place where I don't have to worry or think about any of the constraints or worries of daily life. So I really focus on making fantasy videos with elaborate characters with makeup and costumes and things like that to kind of help people let go of anything they might be worrying about. So yeah, I started my channel about 2 years ago because of that. What I like to do outside of ASMR, I like to be really creative. I paint a lot of acrylic paintings. I like to go to beaches and gardens and mountains and just kind of paint what I see. Am I forgetting anything?
No, that's fantastic.
Okay, cool.
Angelica?
Well, my name is Angelica. The way I got into ASMR was because I posted one time that I really liked the way I felt after I went to a doctor's office, where it was like, you know, the way they checked your eyes and like the way they would check your vitals. I was like, okay, I'm digging this. And I didn't understand why people hated going to the doctor, and it wasn't until someone was like, oh, well, there's a thing called ASMR, that I was like, oh, okay. And then the fact that I couldn't get onto speech and debate teams because my voice was too soft, I was like, okay, well, this obviously solidifies where I should go now. And I ended up just stumbling onto it. I realized that I really liked it, but there was a couple of gaps that I wish were filled at the time, which was predominantly like historical, mythological, more campier sort of videos. And when I recognized that I could potentially fill it, I decided to try my hand at it. And things that I like doing outside of ASMR, straight chilling, and also, I don't know, watching movies. I'm a huge film buff as well, but I'm more like figuring out whatever I like at the moment that I like it.
Love it. So we're going right back to you. So ASMR on YouTube now, it's a business. A lot of times you guys are students, but it's also it's a job. So how do you get everything done? What's it like being an ASMRtist, having that be your job, and can it really be a full-time job if you want it to be?
I think it could potentially be a full-time job temporarily. Something that you do notice as a trend within the community is that people tend to, if they get a well enough fan base on the community, they tend to translate that audience into another platform that is a little more stable. Because as we've seen with YouTube, you can rise as quickly as you do fall. So it's always best to try and expand and diversify your audience and where you get your money from and what your time is. However, one thing that I can suggest for those that want to start any YouTube channel is that if you want to make a YouTube channel, you have to make sure that you get the responsibilities that you have in check. Or if you're going to school, especially full-time, or if you're going to work full-time, you cannot try and create a high production value on your videos, because that'll take up a lot of time that you're going to be too tired to have while you're going and attending all these other responsibilities. So if you decide to do it full-time, yeah, you can focus on the high production value. But in the beginning, once you realize that this is something you want to be committed to, test that water out first, go low budget, and then expand and build as you go along.
Anyone else have anything to add on that? I know you guys all have different stories about how you started and kind of how you function as a business now. You guys have anything else to add?
It can definitely be a job. But yeah, like you said, like I would suggest if you're starting out, just know that it can be. So if it happens, you're prepared. And that means like learning the legal side of it, having documents in the right place and all of that stuff. Because it's, you know, it's a business. YouTube's owned by Google. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it can be, but you're absolutely right. People, once they get to that, you see a lot of them moving to more sustainable platforms for sure.
All right, thank you. So kind of in that same vein, Aaron, what are your biggest tips for someone that is starting their own channel and then being successful? So kind of in that same vein, what are some of the rules when you're making a video? What are kind of no-go areas, something that you really need to be cognizant of when you're making your first videos?
Yeah, I think for me, probably my only rule is that I try my best to not film if I'm feeling stressed or restless myself, because I feel like no matter how much you try to mask that, it always translates. And so I only try to film when I'm in like a positive, happy, relaxed mood in hopes that that will come across to the viewer. But as far as making your own channel, I think that it's really easy to fall into the trap of seeing what everybody else is making and thinking that in order to be successful, you need to be sort of a generic amalgamation of what everybody else is already doing. And I think that's a huge mistake and is really a disservice to yourself and your own unique perspective and talents. And it's good to, before jumping into making your own channel, really take a good hard look at what's out there and what would you like to see that's not already being made. What niche is there that you can fill that nobody else can, that you have the specific skill set necessary to bring a fresh perspective.
Awesome, thank you. So kind of transitioning from the creative side over to some of the fun side of being a creator. Taylor, how often do you get stopped and recognized in real life? I know if you're wearing the Darling shirt, I'm sure it's anytime you're walking down the street. But how often does that happen? And what's your best story about meeting someone? Maybe it's out somewhere at a restaurant or walking around town.
I wouldn't say every time I go out I get recognized, but I can definitely tell when people keep giving me like triple takes that, you know, they're like, I know you from somewhere. And I had this one guy one time, I was in Hobby Lobby and he just kept looking back at me and like kept looking back like 5 times and I'm like, hi, can I help you? But I think funniest kind of experience, someone recognizing me before was just like, are you ASMR darling? Like, can you whisper for me? And I'm just like right here, like in the middle of the mall right now. So it was definitely the funniest experience, I think.
Did you whisper for them?
I actually did, yeah. I went, hey, it's me.
What about you guys? Do you guys have any great experiences kind of going out and being recognized for your channel? I know it's kind of a unique thing. People watch you to fall asleep, and then you're going to meet you out in public with some kind of outside noise. So what's that like for you guys, and what else have you seen?
Yeah, I get all the time, they'll be like, oh, your normal voice is so weird. Yeah, I'm a human.
I know, everyone thought this was going to be a whisper panel. This is their actual speaking voice. If you hadn't heard them before, this is what they sound like.
No, like she said, it's a lot of like, they'll like look you up on their phone, and so you'll see them being like, that's always really, really funny.
But you guys?
My most recent one was I was at a thrift store. I was looking at a t-shirt, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this girl look at me, and then the jaw just drops. And I look at her, and the first thing she says to me is just, I love you. And we talked for a little bit, and her friend who she was with, I saw her like, oh, bring her next time. There's some color, she's bright red, she looks like a tomato. So it's always fun to be recognized in public, but I never know what to say, because it's definitely an interesting dynamic when you're having an interaction with somebody who knows a lot about you. They've spent many, many hours looking at your face and like learning your personality, yet to you they're a complete and total stranger. So it's kind of an interesting interaction to have that I'm still kind of learning how to deal with, but I definitely always enjoy.
Oh, for me, I think it's the same thing where it's like when someone approaches you, it's always like highly flattering, but also a little confusing because you don't want to be like, oh, it's because of my YouTube channel. Because it's like, then you're kind of like an egotistical like person. Like, oh, I know right here looking at me. But it is something that's always highly flattering. I think the most significant person that came up to me that was like memorable was when I was out with my boyfriend and his siblings. And their siblings didn't know anything about, my YouTube channel. I wanted to keep it that way. I was trying to keep those two lives separate. And a girl came up to me, screamed, started crying, and I was like, we can still play this off. It's fine. This doesn't even make me into a thing. And then she's like, I can't believe who you are. And immediately I was like, no! Like, they know now. And so that was like the only one, but ultimately I was like, it's very sweet of you to come along. Thank you.
Yeah, with that, what's it like talking to your family about being an ASMR creator? I know it's becoming more popular, but how have those conversations gone, and kind of, what was that like for the first time to be like, I made whisper videos like this?
It was weird at first, but I think ultimately they were just happy that I was doing something I loved and could support myself doing. But also, I don't think they've ever seen one of my videos.
All right, moving on. So I know Matty and you guys are on Twitch and you guys stream there and interact with your community. What's that like, kind of building a different audience, a non-whisper audience, if it is, and how do you feel that differentiates from some of the kind of the YouTube interaction that you guys have?
Well, on Twitch, since it's live streaming, we definitely make a lot more mistakes. I know before I've definitely made very loud noises on stream, and people have been like, "What the heck?" And we're like, "Turn worst ASMR ever," and turn it off. But definitely, I think Twitch is since it's a direct kind of interactive thing, it can be more intimate and personal. But YouTube, it's definitely still the same. I don't know, Matty, you want to add on to this?
Sure, yeah. I was gonna say, Twitch is really interesting because, like you said, you'll make loud noises and mess up, but I also think that's a cool aspect for your fans to see, because YouTube is like edited perfect, and Twitch is like, hey, I just messed up, I'm human, and you get to be in that process with us. So I really, really like that. And then also it's just, once you get to a certain point, you're a brand. And I think it's kind of cool to start building an ecosystem of like different places for your brand.
WatchMatty.
Plug. Yeah, it's just nice I feel more human, truly, on Twitch than YouTube because I do make mistakes. I'm probably funny.
You never curse, right? Never.
Not once, not even in my life. I just switch it.
So Aaron and Angelica, you guys aren't on that platform yet, and I don't think you guys have done much live streaming. Is that something you consider? Is that something you want to kind of add on in the future? Is it you guys like the polished output that you're putting out, so we're going to stick to that?
I've tried live streaming before and it's been a ton of fun. I think it's been almost a year since my last one. The time always flies by, like I feel as though it'd be about 20 minutes. I look at the clock and I've been streaming for 5 hours just because it's so easy to get lost in this constant stream of like questions that you're rapid fire just trying to answer them all. So it's a ton of fun, but it's also so much pressure, like you guys were talking about, like whether it's a loud noise or you accidentally like phrase something wrong or like reveal some personal information. With live streaming, you know, there's no chance to edit. It is, once you say it, it is out there forever. Yeah. So I think that I will still try to do a live stream every once in a while just because it's such a unique experience to have that like almost one-on-one interaction with your viewers, but it's just too much pressure for it to be something that I can like regularly incorporate. Yeah.
I just love the fact that you call myself polished. I'm like, have you seen my videos? But I've done a little bit of live streaming on obviously Patreon, like where else. And it is something where it's like obviously whatever you put out there, it's gonna stay out there, you can't edit it. And it is fun. For me, I tend to try to take a more relaxed and casual approach, where it's like I'm just hanging out in my room with people technically watching me, and like as if it was someone physically in my room watching me and we were just interacting. So when you take that approach, it's more casual, there's no pressure. I think information kind of flows out of you naturally, and if you don't want to say something, you won't accidentally fall into that trap and say something that's a little too private for that information to get out.
So last question about being a creator. Personal information, Aaron, you touched on this a little bit. How do you guys deal with that as creators? I know kind of there's different levels of disclosure that you have with your audience, but how do you personally feel like you're able to control that? And what are some of the steps for, obviously for new creators, that you think are important for them to consider when they're starting their channel?
Honestly, when it comes to new content, like when you're making a channel, try to keep yourself, my rule of thumb is always to keep your public life away from your private life. And that's rule number one for any person that's going out into the public. I mean, ultimately, if you don't review any information that could potentially get you, for example, like doxed, or for example, someone that ends up finding a little too much information from you through whatever source, then okay, that's the worst possible case scenario. But an extra step that people tend to overlook is that if you put a lot of your personality out there, and you're someone that might be a little more vulnerable, a little more sensitive, they can directly attack your personality that you might be a little more defensive about. While if you put out a persona, or if you put out someone that's fabricated, or professional, or whatever, they're only attacking what they see as you, when it's not really you.
Anyone else have anything to add on this? I know it's important.
First 2 months of my channel, I didn't share even my first name, and right when people figured it out, I actually got doxxed myself. Like they found a previous address that I lived in and stuff. And a way to, I think, to deal with that is just to keep your head held up high if people do find personal information that you don't want them to find out. And just there's a way to block certain words on comments. That's really important. Get a private network, a VPN. That also helps, so you don't get hacked. So.
Hashtag sponsored.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you guys. So moving on from just kind of being a creator to kind of some of the more technical stuff within ASMR. So Matty, what's your current gear setup right now? And kind of what are you aiming for? What's your goal? What's next on your shopping list?
So I don't like the word techie, but I like stuff. So like my setup, I have 2 different cameras if we want to get technical. I personally use the G7X Mark II for my filming normal videos, and then I have a Sony A6000, which I also use for certain things. And then like as far as microphones, I feel like that's the most like, a lot of people use the Yeti. That's kind of the go-to thing. And then some people use the 3DO, and then I think just not recently, maybe in the last year, the Rode NT1 on each side. And so I have those, and I think it's just cool because there's always new things coming out, and especially with ASMR getting bigger, I've had companies contact me who are making microphones specifically for ASMR. And so it's really cool that that's always evolving, and I see it as just a thing in your ASMR tool belt that you can pull out whenever you want to for certain videos. I'll use the Yeti for 70% of my videos probably, but then like if I do a role play where I'm a little bit closer, I'll do an NT1 on each side because you can get closer to those things. So I just see it as different tools.
See it everything in this thing.
No. No, I don't know. There's always new stuff coming out. I enjoy keeping up with that stuff. It's fun.
We'll call you a techie. What about everyone? What do you guys use?
I just use my phone, just my iPhone, to be honest. And I think that if you have an Android or whatever phone, as long as it takes decent quality videos and has a decent microphone, you could easily use it. And I think it's very effective if you're starting out or if you're someone that has a busy personal life with university or work. That in that way, it's less of a stress and a hassle to set up a production, to make sure that the tech is working, to edit your videos. It's just one and done. You just have to find a quiet time to record, whether you're doing ASMR or any other content.
Wow, what a perfect lead. It's like you knew the questions in advance. So one thing that I want to know is the noise requirements in ASMR. I know it's so important that kind of the quality of the sound needs to be so perfect. And every so often you can be in the middle of shooting and an ambulance goes by, or literally anything could go wrong. It could be a squirrel on the roof. You never quite know. How do you personally deal with the noise requirements that there are when you're making a video? And what recommendations do you have for other people other than just be patient?
Honestly, I just end up going like Hulk smash whenever someone makes a single sound. And I'm like, how dare you? I'm in the middle of a production right now. And then I end up just waiting until the noise passes, or I get lazy and I wait until tomorrow to make a video or something. GB and I had a blooper together where an ambulance passed by. And we were both like, God damn it, why did you have to die right now? Like, we're in the middle of a video.
Don't say no.
It's always a hassle.
What about you guys? Do you guys do soundproofing or anything like that? How can we?
I have some soundproofing, but I also pretty much strictly only start filming at like 2:30 a.m.
So the sleep schedules are a little bit.
Sleep schedules are messed up, but better sound.
Alright, working. So darling, as you guys are all experts, but when it comes to ASMR, do you, now that you've kind of been creating your own videos, do you have a preference for more technical ASMR, or do you still really search for like intimate or roleplay type videos? Where do you kind of land on that spectrum?
I've definitely, I personally prefer lo-fi ASMR, which is not so technical ASMR. Something about it to me just feels more natural and just intimate and just like closer. And I don't know if it's because I'm a 90s baby or anything, but just like that crappy audio quality, just it gives me ASMR for some reason more than like high-tech, super high-tech ASMR does. But everyone's different, so it just depends on your personal preference.
Do you guys feel like you notice things in videos that maybe other people wouldn't? If you're watching, like, oh, I know that's an edit or that's something that they're doing. Do you guys see that when you're watching videos?
I can tell when someone's annoyed by a sound and like how they incorporate it. If they edit it, it's probably because of the sound, and if they're incorporating it, I'm like, I know what you're feeling into it. Like, I know everything.
You can really look in their eyes and
yes,
see what they're doing.
I can see the pain.
So Aaron, you do some really elaborate videos, and are there any videos that you're really proud of when you look back on your channel? You're like, yeah, I sat down, I wrote like a novel right there and made that story. So do you have any, can you talk through kind of the process of creating these really elaborate stories?
Yeah, so I really love set design. My absolute favorite part of the entire video making process is going to antique stores and being like, ooh, finding like interesting different objects that I can create a really immersive backdrop with. And that's really always how a video starts for me, is going to a store full of old junk and finding some weird trinket and then imagining like a whole, like who would this belong to and what would they be like and what would their voice be like. And then I come up with like makeup and a costume, and then I kind of sit in the mirror and and like come up with, try out different like voices and like inflections and tones and see what they would kind of be like. So that's kind of what the process is. But as far as videos that I'm really proud of, I think that my favorite is definitely this one I did called Mabel's Menagerie, which is like a dragon keeper. She's this very eccentric lady who she shows you all her different dragon eggs and describes to you what each dragon is going to grow up to be like. And that video was so much fun to make because I got to make a wide variety of different eggs. Like I messed around with paper mache and clay and like thumbtacks, just making all these fun different textures, like a kindergartner with macaroni noodles, just like and yeah, I think that's probably my most popular video.
Do you read up on dragons and like look at some dragon lore that you're really specifically proud of, and kind of the process like that where you're spending a lot of time just to come up with a story mainly because you want to?
Just really quick, I did a Fortnite props series on my channel, and a lot of those were like days of building things for it, but also like it made it really rewarding as well. Like,
I did a Queen video one time, and it was really fun because I kind of got to create like my own kingdom, like a tingle kingdom. And now I have a sword in my house, so if anyone wants to break into my house, I can cut them.
Angelica, we'll talk about your creativity later. This is here right now. So ASMR itself is a scientific term, and it's kind of been talked about, but it's become a much broader genre. And you guys all kind of hearing about your channels, we see how you guys can each make your own niche in there. How do you incorporate your own personality in your videos, and how do you bring elements like comedy into something that's supposed to be intimate and relaxing? How do you kind of bridge that gap between those two?
Well, I think it really helps the fact that I'm a naturally soft-spoken person, so automatically, boom, the first step is done. It's like, I don't need to, but I think whispering itself or having a soft-spoken voice does most of the work. But when it comes to actually creating content for the videos, that tends to be more a matter of what a person's interested in, and that's where their personality is reflected. It's not necessarily a sign of their characteristics where it's like, oh, in this video I can tell they're being introverted or extroverted. It's more so that, oh, this person likes this, and so if I want to talk to them and I have a similar interest, this is where to go, because this is what a normal person would eventually, talk about if they like this. So for me, it's mostly that you can tell that I love history, and I love mythology, and I love psychology, and really campy slapstick humor. And that's where you can see like the little bits of my personality.
So you think it's the voice that does it? You're just naturally that talented?
Yeah. Everything else I'm like, this is lightly ASMR. Like it has ASMR features to it.
Have you broken out like high school textbooks to find exactly what you need for your history videos, or is it all in high school?
High school. This is children's games. I've broken out that like Encyclopedia Britannica of your finding sources.
Does anyone else have anything? How do you guys feel like you can get, I know with art there's some other ways that you can integrate your personalities, but how do you bridge that gap between getting your own personality out there in something that's supposed to be intimate and relaxing for people?
From like day one, and this is my number one advice to people who ask advice for starting channels, my number one thing is be yourself, and I know that sounds broad, but really like YouTube is under such a microscope. Like if I make one mistake, there's 500 comments of like the timestamp and when it was and stuff. And like, so like the best compliment I get is not even about the ASMR in itself. It's like, hey, you're the same person in real life as on your channel. So for me, I think it comes naturally because I try to be who I am in my videos. And even like role play stuff, when I'm playing a character, I still try to be me playing that character. If that makes sense.
Okay. So Aaron, ASMR in general has obviously seen a big jump recently. There was a Super Bowl commercial about it. There's been a lot more research done into kind of the scientific sensation and kind of more validation of it as a genre and something that occurs. How do you feel that's impacted your life, your channel, and your conversations with friends, family, and then obviously we have a bunch of people here listening, so how do you think that's impacted everything?
I think the biggest difference is that now when people ask me what I do, it doesn't feel like a really weird conversation, because I think about a year ago even, if like an Uber driver would ask me what I do, I'd be like, oh, I do ASMR. Like, is that a cult? Like, what is and I'd have to awkwardly try to stumble my way through it, and they would just think I'm weirder and weirder, and they'd please get out of my car. Whereas now I can just say like, oh, I do ASMR. And they think it's super cool, and we can have a nice conversation about it. So I think that that's great that it's become way more normalized, the number of channels has exploded. And I've heard people say, I've heard people who have a negative perspective of that and think that, oh, the community is oversaturated, there's too many channels. But I think it's a really cool thing because, like I was talking about earlier, like everybody brings their own unique perspective to it, and everybody has such specific, unique tastes that it's really cool that now it's incredibly easy to find a creator who perfectly suits you, because everybody wants something completely different, so I don't think there's such thing as too many channels.
What about you guys? How do you think the change in general tone has impacted and helped out?
Well, I know, yeah, definitely 2 years ago, when someone asked me, I would be praying, like, about my YouTube channel, I'd pray they would not look it up right in front of me, like, and just see, like, that I do, like, these weird whispering videos, so it's definitely not only helpful to ASMR, but I think to the artist that it's a more mainstream thing now. We're not so, even though I was a little embarrassed at first, of course 3 years ago when I first started my channel, but now, like, of course I'm not embarrassed at all. Like, even just back then I learned to just not care what people thought, and it's great to be able to be proud of something now that people once thought was really weird and just off-putting, so it's great.
And it's really cool. I was here last year for the ASMR panel, and you guys being here, there's like, I'm gonna say maybe 4 times more people this year than last year at the ASMR panel. And so that just, so that just says something about that as well. Like, it's became a little bit more mainstream, and we think of it for us, how it affects us, but it also affects fans as well. And like, if it wasn't growing, we wouldn't.
So I do think one thing that
We'll talk about it more, and I hear more. My friends who kind of got introduced to this through me, through G, so a bunch of levels down can now have productive conversations. I just think that's something I wanted to add that's been really cool to see. So enough about all the great stuff. Matty, we know that ASMR is normally positive, but you do have kind of people that will be negative, and there are kind of comments that you see everywhere. So how do you how do you feel, what do you feel the best way for creators to deal with that kind of negativity in the comments that you might see?
Sure. It's different it's different for everybody. Like, the weird thing is, like, it used to bother me because, like Taylor said in the beginning, like, I started making it because I was in need of it as well. And so, you know, when people say literally, there's been the worst thing said that a human can possibly think of to me, right? And like, I don't know. I think there's you get to a certain point where you can just kind of brush it off, but like, it's always in the back of your mind, like, man, that sucks to hear. But then, like, it starts to get. I'm at a stage now where it's kind of funny. Like, I get called like a baked potato or like a chicken nugget or something all the time, and I'm like, I like both of those things. So I don't know. I think it's different for everyone, but I think getting into YouTube and being in the public, unfortunately, it's something that is going to happen regardless, because you're on the internet, and it's just how you handle it, and you just have to brush it off. Really, that's. I know that's cliche, but I think that, yeah.
What about anyone else? How do you guys feel like you can brush it off and move past some of the stuff that you see? Because again, ASMR is such a positive place, and the community generally is one of the more positive places, but you kind of always have those bad eggs everywhere.
Honestly, when it comes to negative comments, the reason it doesn't tend to faze me, number one, because I'm fabulous, but number two, because honestly, it's better to be talked about than not talked about. It's the most cliche line. But in reality, when you put it into perspective, these people are talking negatively about you. They spent the time to talk negatively about you when you don't even know their name. So it's like, excuse me, who really wins this game is
And they're giving you views.
Yeah, it's like, excuse me, you just gave me that CPM, like,
right?
check yourself.
Awesome, thanks. So one other thing about ASMR that is still being talked about is mukbangs. They're a super popular kind of subgenre of ASMR, and a lot of times there's a misconception that is what ASMR is, so that might be the first thing people see. So where do you think they fit in? How do you feel about them personally? And yeah. where do you see their place in the overall community?
Honestly, when it comes to mukbangs, I think they do have that effective ASMR quality, so if people like it, then obviously there's a platform for them to like it. So honestly, when it comes to me, whenever I see those, I don't see it so much as ASMR as much as my next dinner. So it has another purpose for me. But honestly, when it comes to ASMR, it's such an eclectic genre that anything could fall beneath its umbrella.
Yeah, I've always found it weird when people will leave comments on ASMR videos like, this isn't ASMR. Because ASMR is, the name of a sensation, not a type of content, I feel like. And for different people, different things create that sensation. And personally, mukbangs make me want to die. But if it makes somebody happy and it gives them ASMR, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
I agree there.
Thank you.
I think where it fits in also is ASMR is so broad now. Like, I see it as just a branch off of ASMR, and there's a bunch of different branches, and that's okay. But certainly, like, it's very popular, and like slime and soap cutting and stuff like that was huge, and still is huge on Instagram and stuff like that. So that will definitely be an introduction to a lot of people. They'll assume that is ASMR.
Are you guys going to do mukbangs to get people that are watching that as they're reading ASMR? Have you guys done one, or? I know Aaron is saying no. Aaron's saying no.
My eating habits are too savage for that. It's not even ASMR.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be relaxing.
It's survival.
I've never done one. I don't think you'd do that.
You could eat chicken nuggets and potatoes.
I've done mukbangs before, and just editing it is just not my favorite thing to do, so I haven't done one in probably over a year now.
All right, so moving into some creator-specific questions. Aaron, I know you moved from the beauty space and then kind of transitioned into ASMR. Tell us about the difference between the two communities. I know you did a beauty panel while you were here, so you're still kind of in both spaces, but what are some of the differences between the communities, between the content you create, and how do you meld both of those types of your personality into both your content, either ASMR in your makeup world or makeup in the ASMR world?
Yeah, I was really shocked to see that even though ASMR seems like something that would be so full of positive, relaxed people, and there is a lot of that, there's definitely this kind of like dark underbelly that is so much more intensely hateful than I feel like any other genre on YouTube. When I had a makeup channel, I'd say maybe once a month I would get some sort of disgusting comment. Whereas ever since starting ASMR, it's literally every day hundreds of people who are just so intensely angry, which is fascinating. And I think that it's because ASMR attracts a lot of different kind of people, but I feel like one of the main groups is people who are really craving intimacy and have a kind of emotional gap in their lives that they're looking to fill. And people like that can be very hurt and feel very small and are looking for any way they can possibly claw their way up at the expense of anybody else. So I definitely see that a lot, and it was really hard for me to deal with at first when I would get comments that were so hateful, and I assumed I was the only person getting comments like that. I'm like, oh my god, I better delete my channel right now. I don't belong here. And it was really helpful for me to see that creators who I absolutely love, and I know for a fact are incredibly talented and hardworking, get the exact same stuff. And so looking at that, I can just think, if I know it's not true about them, it must not be true about me also. And I would absolutely hate for them to stop making content because of that, so I shouldn't either. And then also as far as how like my makeup experience has like transferred over to my ASMR channel, I am a lot happier now making the videos that I make, because I never enjoyed making makeup tutorials. It was really something where I loved transforming myself into a different character and doing the set design and the costuming and the makeup, but I was never passionate about being like, put light brown in the crease, and then dark brown in the crease, and then darker brown in the crease. It's just not something I'm passionate about, and I feel like ASMR has all of the aspects that I loved about making those videos, but without the parts that I wasn't so crazy about.
You have an ASMR channel.
No, except, oh my gosh, I get so panicked every time before I check out because almost every time they're like, what are you going to use this for? And I'm like, oh, it's going to be in my living room.
Just to give an AT couch.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, Angelica, you have some fantastic characters and do role plays. How much of this do you come up with beforehand? I know we talked about you breaking out the encyclopedia, but what's your turnaround really for a new video? Do you watch something in the morning, get sparked an idea, and you're filming that night? Is it like a month-long process? Just how do you get these ideas from your brain onto your channel?
Honestly, it's just the flip of the coin. Because there's some things, a majority of the content that I make is content that I've been obsessed with and that I've researched every single thing that I could about it. I watched videos, I read books about it. And from that like previous library of knowledge, I'm able to make characters that I can kind of personify in my own way. But in other instances, it's more so that I just want to be goofy, and I end up just making videos to just kind of release that extra energy in me. Like the cannibal deer, I think that one was one where it's like a great example of what was she on when she made it. So it really just depends on the day, really.
Awesome, thanks. So do you have anything else other than the cannibal deer or whatever? So what are some other specifics where, what's one where you spent months coming up with an idea and executing, and what's one where you had an idea in the morning and you filmed it that night?
One that I know that I did in a single day was the Notre Dame burning, where it was like Victor Hugo mourning the Notre Dame going down. That one I was like historical opportunity, but I don't think I've ever, no, yes I have technically. There's a couple that I've spent a couple of months thinking about. Michael Jackson is one that I've been spending a couple of months thinking about, and it's just like, who knows, but I'm like, should I go there? But ultimately it's more so just whatever is the luck of the draw, basically.
Thank you. Matty, so you are the one male ASMRtist on the panel, and you're representing male ASMRtists at events like Vidcon, and then in the Reese movie as well. You're the kind of the one male ASMRtist there. What does that feel for you? What's your thoughts on being in that position? And what are some of the other things you would say to other male ASMRtists?
Sure. This is really hard to answer. I'm very, very honored that I get opportunities like this, not just as a male creator, but also like person of color, minority. On top of that, makes it really, really interesting, and I don't take them lightly. And listen, I feel like I've gotten really, really lucky because I have had some opportunities this year. This included where, I'm the only male creator, and I don't know what made that happen, but I feel very, very lucky to do it, and I kind of see it as a responsibility because there's a lot of really great male ASMR creators in the community, and they do really well, but it's still predominantly a female. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like 70-30, 60-40 female?
I would say I think men are really the minority, because I can only name a handful of men that keep up with it. I think women tend to be the ones that tend to keep up with it, tend to have a larger audience. So it is rare to see a male come to the forefront of an ASMR genre, because it's typically oversaturated.
So it's interesting because when you look at demographics, a lot of you guys, like there are some subtle differences, but in general it's either 60-40 or it can be 60-40 the other way. So the people watching aren't necessarily predominantly male, predominantly female. So why do you think that it's such a split in terms of creators, and especially, Angelica, to your point, consistency in creators? There are a lot of larger male ASMR creators, but sometimes they'll post a little less frequently, and maybe not be in the same schedule sometimes as you guys are.
I think the reason why there's that split, and it tends to be that, the people that are watching aren't consistently one way or another. It's not typically men or women. It's more so a pretty even mix of it. But I think the reason why women tend to amass more views, because once again, it's not just like, oh, well, it's because men are watching, because a lot of women are watching too. I think it might be perhaps because ASMR is supposed to be more calming, soothing sort of thing. So no one wants to fall asleep with a man getting into a camera and looking at you as you fall asleep. And number two, I think it's because I think women tend to have softer voices as well. And men have like deeper, more bass, powerful voices. So it's like, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think one thing that I know as well is a lot of the largest male ASMR creators are they're more on the technical side, and they might not even show their face, and they're just doing tapping or doing. So when you think of someone like Zeitgeist, who's creating things and kind of using his fingers or in all of his thumbnails, so I just think that's kind of an interesting split. And Matty, thanks for kind of being a representation from this?
For sure, no, I truly, like, I feel very, very lucky. This year has been really crazy with the Reese movie and this and stuff, and sometimes I don't feel like I deserve it, but also, I've also just kind of gotten over that and been like, if I'm supposed to be here and I can represent people, it's a very lucky position to be in.
Well, I'm sure Reese is very happy that you're using the Canadian pronunciation. That's really taken over at ASMR. We're now a Canadian. So, darling, so you've really, how has ASMR and being an ASMRtist and kind of how's that affected your life and some of the opportunities that you might have had? I know you've been kind of all over Vidcon already with different things. So, talk about what that's like, some of the how it just impacted you.
Well, not just because of ASMR, but YouTube became a full-time career for me. So that is the number one way it affected my life. I can support myself financially. I can also go to school because I can make my own schedule. So it's nice to be able to do that too. And also, it's also helped me because I've kind of wanted to get into acting. It's just something I always wanted to do since I was younger. And I've done a few acting gigs, so it's definitely helped in the sense of, you know, my second life, I guess, my second business life, I guess you could say. But ASMR itself, it's impacted my life like tremendously. Like I still use it to go to sleep almost every single night, and it's just puts me in a whole different world, and it helps just melt my stresses away. It's my therapy, so it's helped just my entire life.
Awesome. Well, that is all the questions that we have. I think we can maybe open it up a little bit if you guys still have other questions. Is that something we can do? So I'm not sure if you guys have any questions, but thank you guys all. We appreciate you guys.
I'm just wondering about monetizing ASMR and working with brands and that kind of thing. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
When it comes to monetizing, honestly, it's such a flipping coin. Because there's some channels that you've noticed where it's like they clearly go against what is known to be the community guidelines and they make revenue, they're having ads and whatnot. And then on the other flip, there's a lot of channels that are abiding by the community guidelines and they're getting completely demonetized. So it's really just a flip of the coin. My advice is that if you're making content, try to avoid using tags. That's what I've been using, because sometimes the tags can sometimes give away to the filters somehow. It can like alert them of whatever content, even if it's not wrong or bad or against community guidelines, it could trigger something in that algorithm. And number two, when it comes to collabing with friends and whatnot, I think when you're working in a community, you start to reach out to more people that do the same thing as you, because once again, it's a niche market. Regardless if you're in a huge genre of YouTube or a small genre of YouTube, you're one of the few people that are doing that part in that specific platform. And so it's often nice to collab because then you get to understand how another person does their content and how you do your content, how you can meld that, remember things, and you can obviously create content that people would want to see because they're like, oh, I like you and I like you. So it's all around a great experience.
Yeah, so specifically working with brands, how have you guys felt with that? I know Darling and Matty, you guys both did the Reese movie, and I know you guys all have worked with sponsors in some way. How do you feel that kind of fits in with your channel, and how do you do that necessarily in the right way to kind of maintain your creator credibility while also working with brands and monetizing your content?
Yeah, I pretty much strictly will only work with them if they have, if their vision lines up with mine, if it lines up with my brand, but also you can tell intentions of brands right away. And so you can tell if a brand is just jumping on the ASMR, whatever, and trying to use you for it, or if they're trying to make something organically really, really cool and it benefits everyone. Yeah.
You guys want to come up and ask? You guys want to line up? We'll try. I think we don't have
line up. Rapid fire.
Okay, so a year ago, I was at a restaurant and I was having the tingles. And I didn't know what they were. I mean, I've had them my whole life, but I didn't know what to call them. So I was sitting there, and my husband's like, what's wrong with you? And it was somebody eating the chips at a Mexican restaurant. They took me, and I said, I'm just having the warm fuzzies, because that's what I've called it my whole life. And so my 16-year-old's like, Mom, that's ASMR. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And he's like, oh, it's on YouTube. You got to go check it out. So I immediately went home. Very first video I saw was ASMR Darling, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like my whole life, I didn't know what it was. So I just wanted to say thank you. But also, I want to know, what's your favorite trigger?
Honestly, like hand movements, like whenever someone's like, oh, or like, you know, they're
That's
doing something
mine.
like that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
ooh,
mine. I love it.
you're getting it right.
Thank you.
Okay, for creators who are starting out, how do you, because I know I've seen in a lot of smaller creators channels, there's a lot of people who can get in for the wrong reasons, and I've seen a lot of scary comments, not so much hateful, but just ones on maybe younger people's videos. So how do you go about avoiding that and only getting in with like the right side of ASMR? Because I haven't seen a lot of people talk about that, and it's okay if you don't want to answer.
I wouldn't say there's really a right way to, you know, get into ASMR. You know, just don't post inappropriate content, obviously, yeah. And like, I know Angelica mentioned earlier something about the tags, like not tagging certain like don't use tags too often, because that can like attract, I think, you know, bad crowds. I don't know, like I would just avoid using terms that, you know, are not very, like that aren't on topic ASMR, you know, just keep to the ASMR genre terms.
Yeah, Darling, I think to hit on this before, I think another way is moderating your own comments. I think there's a good way to, you can self-delete and you can flag words. So if you're younger and want to really be protected, kind of set a wide net that aren't going to show up, because that's something where as soon as, if you kind of respond to those comments, that's somewhere where you could see kind of it spawns more comments. So avoiding it in the first place is kind of a big way to do it.
Yeah, it's called blacklisting the words, that's what it's called, yeah.
Okay,
It helps
thank you
a
so
lot.
much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gasper. Thank you for the panel. It was great. What I'm wondering is, in ASMRtist, there has been so much development over the past 5, 6, 7 years. Where do you think ASMR is going to go next? What's the next big things, like VR, AR, something completely different?
We're talking to Elon Musk right now to expand, but I think it's going to just, I don't know, it's going to keep expanding. I think, once again, ASMR is such a huge umbrella that advertisements, commercials are using it. There's a lot of interviews being done with celebrities that are incorporating it. So I think it's not something that can be geared artificially. I think it's just something that's going to end up kind of spilling into every other thing. Because ultimately it's just taking on a relaxing tone, and that can be fit into any category that you look at.
And I know there's, I get emails almost every week about, you know, just universities wanting to do studies on ASMR and stuff. So once we know more scientifically about it, I'm sure, you know, the whole medical side of it will rise. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Took my question. Hello. I'm curious, what are your favorite ASMRtists currently?
Our favorite ASMR?
Yeah, like who you watching?
If you don't say me.
Who's MattyTingles? I don't know if you've heard of her, Olivia Pisper. She's been an all-time favorite of mine, so she's, yeah.
Really quick, mine is a mix between Heather Feather and ASMR Requests, who are, those two are like in my Mount Rushmore of ASMR, and those are my two favorite of all time.
Karuna Satori, to be honest. Yeah.
I think probably ASMR Surge and the OG Gentle Whispering.
Hey,
Yeah.
there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Animated ASMR, and I was kind of curious, for the future of ASMR, what is something that you always wanted to try or experiment, or maybe like a location if you always wanted to film at, or anything like that?
I've definitely always been really interested in VR, because since I do roleplay videos where my whole intention is to try to transport somebody to another time and place, I would love to be able to do like a 360-degree set. That would be extremely difficult. And so it's definitely kind of a more lofty goal in the future, that I'd like to completely transform an entire room and be able to use a 360 camera to do a VR video someday.
Honestly, I just want to film at a graveyard, but I've not had the permissions for it yet.
Hi.
Oh.
So my first introduction to ASMR was someone making like fun of it, calling it weird and stuff, and I ended up looking it up myself, and my first reaction was ASMR Darling, and I actually liked it. I've been subscribed since. I've expanded since that from there. But like, what's your like reaction to that? Do you guys ever like look that stuff up, you know, and stuff like that?
You mean look at like people reacting to ASMR?
Yeah, I saw like your video on your second channel doing that.
Yeah, I did a reacting to people reacting to my ASMR.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's kind of weird watching people watch your videos like on camera. And like sometimes, like I remember at first it did like a couple of them people straight on making fun of it. It would make me mad. And then I just learned to like laugh at it and make fun of them making fun of me. Thank you.
Hello. Can I just say you all look wonderful?
Oh, thank you.
This is specifically for Aaron and Angelica. I was wondering, what are your like favorite characters to do in ASMR?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like doing, honestly, the ones that I take the most satisfaction from are the ones that I know are going to be like, what is that? And also, oh my god, are you allowed to do that? And also, I like it though.
I like to do characters that have really weird, quirky personalities, because even though I do like to, you know, be calm and relaxing, my natural inclination is always to talk like really fast and excitedly, and so I find it so freeing to be able to play like a weird, bizarre character and just kind of like be myself. And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I had a question mainly for Matty, but it's open to all of you because I love you all. But you having such a great year with the Reese movie and, you know, getting to do all this stuff, what would you say in terms of translating what ASMR is to mainstream media? What's the best way to do that, do you think? I know we were talking about people who are like, oh, I have no idea what ASMR is. Oh, it's relaxing. We're talking about the scientific background behind it, but how would you say, like, just to the average Joe across the street that says, what do you do, ASMR? What's the best way you think to kind of like explain it?
Yeah, so my advice is come up with a sentence that you can tell everyone, because you get asked that a lot. And so mine is always like, I do ASMR, and they'll go, what is that? And I go, do you know like when you're a kid and someone's tracing your back and that feeling? Or like the cracking the egg thing? It's that feeling that we're trying to induce. And so I think that's the best way to just come up with a thing that you can consistently say, because then you're not just blabbing like, I do this thing with things.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
So I'm mostly here to say, I like you guys.
Oh, thank you. I like your shirt.
Another question for Matt. When is Shoe Collection 20 coming out? Edge of my seat.
Probably when I get back. I truly it was weird because I started being the shoe guy.
Yeah.
Which is like fine because it's cool to be known for something.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I have like 270 other videos of other things.
Nope.
Nope.
Those don't matter.
To answer your question, in the next week.
And bars up 8?
In the next year.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. Love you all.
I also love your shirt too. Screams in ASMR.
Yes.
Yeah.
Merch. This is less of a question, more of a statement kind of thing, fanboying. And long time no see.
Yes.
But this is for Aaron. Since first ASMR video that I saw, going through the whole black hole of YouTube, I saw chilling at the party and everything, and that was the one that got me into ASMR. Whole reason why I'm here, and met all these great friends, and yeah, I don't know. So thank you so much for everything. So
Means a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
love you all.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, I love all of your voices, so I love listening to you talk today. I work at a major music label in Japan, and I have a plan of launching a music ASMR channel, like artists whispery singing some major tunes. Do you have any opinions on that idea or advices? that I can take home?
There are a lot of, I mean, nowadays music is going towards that direction where people are whispering now with the technology that's out. I mean, Billie Eilish is a huge example of someone that's soft-spoken and singing. And so I think that you're going down an excellent popular trend that is like a music industry secret, I guess. Or at the very least, it's like a spilling secret, but it's not completely out there.
Yeah, let's keep it to the room.
Yeah. So I think that when it comes to you, I guess specifically looking for ASMR artists to do music, there are a number of ASMR artists that have sung and done like ASMR type of music already.
I've done some research.
So I think that that would be something that I would imagine as being a very, what's it called, a very interesting career path that I think would be successful.
Okay, thanks.
I would also really quick, I would just say, when launching or advertising and stuff, try to get, if they're down, try to get some actual ASMR artists. Because like, I remember the Super Bowl commercial, like it was amazing, but like so many other comments were like, wait, why didn't you get an actual person who does this? And so I could see that being like,
having the authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Even though there's not really a necessary length, a good amount of ASMR videos range from 20 minutes, 30 minutes onward. So when shooting longer videos, is there anything that you guys do to like when you get bored, or if you do get bored when shooting like longer videos, do you guys like have to take breaks, or is there any like, you know, thought process that you go through when shooting them?
Go watch, Taylor made a video about this that's really, really funny about like being an ASMR artist. What is it called?
I think like 7 struggles while making ASMR. It's like it definitely gets, in the video he's talking about, I'm like sitting there brushing the mic and it's like 4 hours later and just continue brushing the mic. It definitely gets boring recording like just, you know, the same thing over and over for hours at a time, and I take breaks. I know some people just like to get it over with in one take, just get it over with, but I like to take breaks in between because I can't sit there and just do it for even like half an hour. I have to take a break. So everyone's different. What about you guys?
I think you could potentially incorporate it. I mean, my content's a little more on the unique side. So whenever I start getting tired and I close my eyes, I pretend I'm dead in the video. And then I make it part of the plot point. And then I reawake and I'm like, I was awake the entire time. So that's one way you could do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're all set. If you guys don't have any questions, thank you guys so much for coming out. We really appreciate again the growth and turnout. We hope to see you guys again.
Make some noise for yourself for coming here. Thank you.
Matty.